Today I'm just going to share a couple thoughts from Luke 24, some observations. And in Luke 24, obviously Jesus is already risen from the dead. And it says, now on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they and certain other women with them came to the tomb bringing the spices which they had prepared. But they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. In other words, Jesus has risen from the dead. Death had no grip on him, and he is resurrected. Now, some of the effects of that resurrection we see throughout the rest of this chapter, I just want to point out. So now we have an open tomb, and as the tomb opens, we see many of the things open to us. And I want to challenge everybody this morning to see if you have these things open in your life. And in verse 29, we see the first thing. I'll start in verse 28. It says, these are the Emmaus Road disciples that Jesus appeared to. And it says, then they drew near to the village where they were going, and he, being Jesus, he indicated that he would have gone on farther. But they constrained him, saying, abide with us, for it is toward evening, and the day is far spent. And he went in to stay with them. So the first thing I see that opens after Jesus' tomb, after the resurrection from the dead, is homes start opening. Okay, so they meet with Jesus, and they immediately open their home to him. So what I want to ask myself is my home open to all who would need food or shelter or companionship or whatnot? So we see a result of resurrection is that homes begin to open. The next thing we see shortly after verse 29 there, verse 30, it says, now it came to pass as Jesus sat at the table with them that he took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished from their sight. So after the homes are open, we see that their eyes are open. So sometimes we take a step forward in faith, and our eyes gain understanding. If we wait around for the understanding first, we may never get around to the action that should have been a part of our lives there. So first it's a step out in faith. I'm going to open my home, and then all of a sudden their eyes are open and they realize that when you serve the least of these, your brethren, you're serving him as well. The third thing that we see open, we see in the very next verse, verse 32, and they said to one another, did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us on the road, while he opened the scriptures to us? So the tomb is open and resurrection happened, and after that the homes were opened for fellowship, then the eyes were opened for understanding, and then the scriptures were open to go deeper and to go broader and wider into the knowledge of God. And then we see following that, it says, so they rose up that very hour and returned to Jerusalem and found the 11 and those who were with them gathered together, saying, the Lord is risen indeed and has appeared to Simon. And they told about the things that had happened on the road and how he was known to them in the breaking of bread. So the next thing we hear here in verse 35, it says that they told about the things that had happened. So now their mouths are open. So you can't have this much goodness in your life without telling people, especially when the intent of God is that other people know through us telling. So now we see that their mouths are open, and then we'll skip down to verse 44. Then Jesus said to them, these are the words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, that all things must be fulfilled which were written in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms concerning me. And he opened their understanding that they might comprehend the scriptures. So now with all of this revelation and obedience to revelation, their understanding is open. So they get the scriptures open, they start speaking of the scriptures, they start understanding what's going on. And, over the decades, you start understanding more and more and more, even over the same stories you've heard. And then ultimately what happens with this, it says in verse 50, Jesus led them out as far as Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and blessed them. Now it came to pass while he blessed them that he was parted from them and carried up into heaven. In other words, the heavens open. So it starts with Jesus' resurrection, with the tomb opening, and it ends with the heavens opening, first to receive Jesus as the first fruits, and then to receive us who believe in him after that. Amen. God bless you guys, and I hope this was helpful.